For today's project, your goal is to create 5 different shapes that you will then grab a book and test to see which one will hold the most weight. The shapes I want you to build are a cylinder, a triangle, a square, a rectangle, and an I-beam. All right, after you build each shape, what I then want you to do is go ahead and get yourself a book, all right, and go ahead and take the book, put it on top of the shape, and see if that shape can hold the book. If you've got a couple books, put a couple books on, see which one can hold up the most weight. Next in the video, I'm going to show you how to make the 5 different shapes. I think the I-beam is probably the hardest to make. However, it's the most realistic shape that you would see when we're building buildings. We've already discussed what the strongest shape is, which is the triangle. However, that's when you apply a weight from the top. How will it do when it's in a column? Rectangle is probably the second hardest shape to build because you got to do a little bit of thinking about measurements. And then I would say that the square is probably one of the easier shapes to make. All right, so now I'm going to break this down to you step by step. To do it, make sure you have your ruler. All right, make sure you have a couple glue sticks. Make sure you've got a pencil. All right, and make sure you have the paper that's been supplied to you. All right, take a watch. First shape we're going to make is the triangle. Easiest shape to make. All you have to do is go ahead and take your paper, fold it in half, open it up, find the seam, make sure the paper lines up into the seam, fold it to the other end, put it inside, fold it. All right, and so now when you take your 4 folds, you will now have a triangle. All right, and now we're going to go ahead and we're going to put some glue on it. First shape, done. Your triangle. Next shape we're going to do is a cylinder. For the cylinder, I like to put some glue on the top. Fold the paper over, but don't crease it. Put some glue on the opposite side. And the reason I'm doing that is so when I roll it, 2 sides both have glue on it. And just give it a roll. All right. And that's your cylinder shape. The next shape is the square. With the square, you could fold it 4 times, but you need to make sure you leave a little edge for some glue. All right, so what I could do is I could start first by folding over a little tab of paper like that. And now that's where my glue is going to go. So then I can take my paper, put it in the tab like that. All right, and then I can fold it one more time again. So with just a couple folds, I now have my square like that. And then all I have to do now is put a little glue on it. to glue it, I can just line it up. Oh, tricky. Let's go this way. What's nice about using the glue stick is that it stays pretty movable. A little better than the white Elmer's glue, which is a little drippy. You don't want too much drip. There you go. All right, the second challenging shape to make is the rectangle. And so to make the rectangle, we got to do a little bit of measuring. We'll have a 1-inch side and a 3-inch side. Now, if you want to do a different set of measurements, that's fine. Just got to make sure that you leave a little tab for some glue. The way that I set up mine is I used a ruler, all right? And I went 3 inches, a mark, an inch, a mark, 3 inches, a mark, 1 inch, and then another mark. And so I have my paper set up like this. I measured it once across the top, then I measured it again across the bottom, same measurements. Used my ruler, lined up the lines, and I'm going to fold along those lines to go ahead and make my rectangle. Let me show you how I measured the lines. So again, you can use your own measurements if you want. You just got to make sure that it's a rectangle. So I mark it at 3 inches, mark it at an inch, mark it at 3 inches, and then mark it at an inch. And this little extra is where my glue is going to go. All right, and I do the same thing at the bottom. 3, 1, 3, 1, and then I just connect the lines. It's a little tricky to fold this, but again, you've made your lines. So now when you fold it, just find the line, make sure you have the edges lined up, and just go ahead and do the best job you can. It's not like we're gonna use these to hold up a skyscraper, but at the same time, you do wanna make sure that your folds are pretty accurate. So again, a couple of different ways to do this. You just find the way that works for you. All right, so now I've got my folds made. I've got a little spot for some glue, so I'll go ahead and put some glue on that spot there. Line up the edge. And if I don't get it the first time, well, second time might be a little better. Open it up. And I've got myself a rectangle. Last shape that we're going to make is the I-beam. All right, and you might recognize an I-beam because an I-beam is in most construction projects. There's actually one in the middle of my classroom. So to make your I-beam, you've got to decide what are the dimensions that you want to use. I went with an inch by an inch by an inch. You can use a different set of dimensions if you want, but I'm going to show you how I did mine inch by inch. The other thing you want to do is you want to add a piece of scrap paper on the top of the I-beam that'll hold these pieces together. Let me show you how I did mine. To do mine, what I did is I took my ruler, all right, and I measured an inch, an inch, an inch, made some lines, did the same thing on the other side, and by making both sides an inch, I have a equally sized I-beam. So I measure over an inch, another inch, and an inch. For the other side, I'll move my ruler over a little bit, an inch, an inch, an inch. I'll do the same thing to the bottom of the sheet. From the bottom, 1 inch, another inch, another inch, and then line up my ruler at the bottom again, an inch, an inch, an inch. I'll go ahead and I'll connect those lines. What I'm trying to do is make sure I keep the dots lined up. All right, so this is going to be one side, and this is going to be the other side. Now that I have my two sides done, I can now grab my scissors, and I go ahead and I can start cutting these out. Once I have them cut out, I now have my two sides, and I have an extra piece. Okay, the extra piece I'm going to save. I'm going to use that later. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my side, and I'm going to fold it so it looks like that. So as I've been doing folding before, I just go ahead and fold it till I find the line, make sure the paper is straight, and then just do the best I can to fold it accurately. I suppose there's probably a different trick I could use, seeing as I showed you some other tricks and some of the other shapes we folded. Seeing as we know that if it's an inch on every side, that it should line up. But if you use different dimensions, again, that's up to you. Okay, so here's one side. Here's my other side of the I-beam. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna put some glue on here, match these two up. Then I'm gonna take my scrap paper, I'm gonna lay it over the top. Now, I want a piece on the top and a piece at the bottom. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna cut this piece of paper in half. But what I could do is I could get another piece of paper that meets them all the way across. But I'll just do this. There's one side, plop it down. And we'll glue another piece at the top. Now you have your I-beam made, and now I have two. And then your next step is you're going to be testing these shapes out for strength to see how strong they are. So now that you got your 5 shapes made, the question is, which one is the strongest shape? So go ahead and take a book, any book, test them out one at a time, put them on top, see which one's the strongest. After you test them all out, what might be a change that you could make to make these shapes stronger? Would this shape be stronger if they were a little shorter? All right, are they too tall? But don't forget, most columns are made for height. They're made to make the building tall. Maybe by changing the dimensions of the rectangle, that shape would be stronger. Maybe by changing the dimensions of the I-beam, that would make it stronger. But go ahead and give them a try, test them out, and make sure that you take a picture of your finished columns. Also make sure that you document your results in your Google Doc. Have fun and enjoy, and make sure you wipe the table off when you're done to get all that glue off of there.